do this. My name is Natalie, and I am the maker, teacher, designer behind Detroit Knots. And I live in Detroit, like in the city, with my husband and my 2 daughters. And I'm starting this podcast because it's hard to find BBIMP video podcasters who focus on crochet. So that's kind of going to be the purpose of this channel, to bring a light to us. And if you don't know, BBIMP stands for Black, Brown, Indigenous, Melanated People. And I know we out here in the YouTube streets, right? But it's just hard to find us. So I'm going to try to make it a little bit easier by finding and sharing all the ones that I love, right? So if you follow me on Instagram, I did post a few people whose podcast I do watch here on YouTube. So go ahead and check that post out and maybe find some people new or remind you of the ones you were already watching to go to their channels and watch their latest videos and like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And oh yeah, do that here. Like, subscribe, right? Yes, all the things. So I am obsessed with crochet and Tunisian crochet. As you can see behind me here and by what I'm wearing, a lot of Tunisian crochet is going to happen around here. I hope you're okay with that, because that's just how it's going to be, right? I got myself some notes since this is the first time I'm doing this. I'm not going to try to rely on my brain to keep me on track, because there's a lot going on in there. So, background. Crochet is still kind of looked down on in the fiber community, and it's been my mission to change that, right? To let people know that it's more than just granny squares. Yeah, we'll talk about granny squares later, because I got some questions. So for my first, what do you call these? Episode, I asked people on Instagram to give me questions that I could answer for this first one, right? Just to get me started. And y'all came through. There's a lot of questions. Some that probably are going to get me in trouble. But if you know me, I don't really care. So my goal is to make sure that crochet is elevated, right? So we're going to go on this elevation journey together, right? And don't worry, I will not forget about myself. You know me, you know I share the good, the bad. Ooh, I was about to say ugly, but yeah, I don't do ugly, so y'all don't see ugly from me. I show you the good and the bad until it gets to the cute, right? Okay. So let's get into these questions. I got my notes over here because, like I said, I'm not relying on my brain. So, of course, the first one was like, how did I decide to start this podcast? So I kind of answered that, and like what my purpose is and what I want this to be, right? But the actual starting of it, I've been thinking about this for a couple of years, and I was scared. I'm still scared, but I'm going to do it anyway, right? Because if you don't do it scared, you're never going to do it. So that's kind of like my motto. Do it anyway. Do it scared. So let's talk about how I got started in crochet. So I was probably about 5, and I was at a neighbor's house, and we was bad. I was going to say, we were busy. We was extra busy. And so her grandmother needed to find something to keep us busy and out of her face and not doing something we weren't supposed to do. So she taught us how to crochet. So we learned the single crochet and, of course, how to chain. So I had miles and miles of chains and single crochet. And then over the years, I picked it up, put it down, mostly down, until I was an adult. And I was at a job. We were doing Secret Santa. I needed a gift. It was very specific color. I hadn't scarf set. and I couldn't find it anywhere in this color. And I was like, oh, I know how to crochet. Not really, but I know how to crochet. I'm gonna go get a hook and I'm gonna get the yarn, the right color, all of that good stuff. Knew nothing about gauge, knew nothing about yarn weights. I got the thickest yarn possible and probably the smallest hook to go with it. And I made a hat and scarf set, and it was terrible, but she still wore it. So I still call that a win. But that kind of like sparked something, and I kept going. Here comes YouTube University, where I learned all the rest of it, right? So thankful for the digital age where I could actually do that at this time, right, as an adult. And I never looked back. I learned as many stitches as possible, and then I started looking at patterns, learning how to read patterns, and then I found Instagram, right? So how I found Instagram was basically I was making all of these hats and scarves, and of course people on Facebook was like, oh, you should sell this stuff, and do you know about Instagram? You should post it there. Okay, what is this Instagram thing? Okay, there's a lot of people on here that are in the fiber community. Like, I didn't know there was a fiber community, but there was, and it was big. And I started following people, and I'm like, oh, you can like write patterns and test other people's patterns. And so I started doing that. I started testing patterns at the same time, still like cranking out hats and scarves to sell at markets. That's a whole nother story. No shade to anybody who does that, but that was not for me, because I have no filter. And people that came into my booth or to my table picked up my product and was like, oh, that costs too much. I didn't need to hear that. Okay, go on to the next table and see if that's in your price range, because I'm not changing my prices. And it's not like I was pricing things expensively anyway at that time, because I ain't know nothing. People just peopling. So I stopped doing markets and I started testing and designing. It's a lot better to make something one time instead of over and over again. Totally fell in love with that. My very first design, you got to go into the way back machine to find that, because it was ugly. And I eventually took it down after I got better. And nobody needs to see that. Then I started learning about how to grade patterns and design garments and other accessories. Ooh, never looked back. I'm not looking back, only to see where I came from. That's it. So I was about 5 when I started, and then you know the rest of the history. Let's see, the next question. Have I seen any changes or major trends in the crochet world from when I began? Yeah, like there are a lot more crochet designers. I'm not going to say that they're all good. Everybody has to start somewhere. But just more garments, more accessories, less granny squares. And just like showing how crochet can be fashion and not just something you do by yourself sitting on your couch. Like, there is a whole community out there, and crochet can be high fashion. It could be wearable. It could be more than blankets. We'll talk about that too. And it's great. And it's awesome to be a part of that, right? Let's see. What's my favorite design element that I've added to a design? Ooh, baby, pockets. Pockets. Okay, so I'm sorry. This design is not out. I'm trying. I'm working on it. This is going to be the year where I get my crap together and actually put out patterns, right? So I have a cardigan, and it has pockets. It has real pockets, like whole hand pockets. You put your whole hand in the pocket, not like these fake pockets they put on our jeans. They make a time for that. I need to be able to use my pockets. Like I got stuff that needs to go in the pockets. So besides the pockets, cables. So yeah, I'm not really that into like regular crochet cables, but Tunisian crochet cables, that is my jam, right? So I'm gonna try to get more people to do Tunisian crochet cables. Do trends shape my designs? No. And I know that that sounds weird because you would think that a designer would look at the trends and then gather inspiration from that. I don't care. I design for myself actually. So I think of something that I want for myself, and then that is what I design. I don't pay attention to trends to see if I can do replicate it, right? Um, and that's fine for designers that do that because I've seen some awesome stuff come from that, you know. So I might take inspiration from something that's in the trend, but I have to do something to make it my own. I gotta tweak it. I gotta put my sauce on it, you know. Let's see. I'm gonna try not to say 15,000 times, but I'm also not gonna edit it out if I do. Let's see. Where do I find inspiration? I find most of my inspiration comes from colors. I love colors. I love jewel tones. I love rich colors. And usually I'll see an idea in my mind and I know exactly what color I want it in. It don't always work out that way, but that's my jumping off point, right? And then shapes. So as far as like the trends that are out there, if I do take a trend, it's mostly about the shape and the drape and maybe some texture, but not like the actual thing, the piece. Do I feel pressure to conform to what others want or are making? No. They like what they like. I like what I like. And here's the thing. I'm going to make what I want to make, and then it's a bonus if other people decide that they like it too. Because, like I said, I design for myself. I design what I want. And then I attract people that also want the same things. Or attract people who didn't know that they wanted that. And now that they've seen it, they do now. That's kind of how that works. My design process is wonky. So there's a lot of frogging that goes on. Sometimes I can see the construction of a piece, like I know exactly how it's going to work out. At least in my brain. My brain is telling me that this is how it's going to work out. That might not happen, and that's okay. That's what frogging is for. And I know a lot of people have like, oh my God, frogging, I can't frog something. I will take a whole piece apart. I don't care. If I don't love it, it's got to go. And then I keep trying until it becomes what I need it to be. Or the yarn tells me it needs to be something else, because that happens as well. So it really depends on like what the piece is. For accessories, I'm more thinking about like the shape of it. What do I need to do to get this shape, right? Well, I guess it's the same for garments too. So my design process is pretty much the same for accessories and garments. Get the shape right, make sure it fits right, make sure I love it. And if I don't, I trash it. When I like actually trash it, I don't put yarn in the trash. I will frog it, let it sit for a second, and rethink that. Okay, we're not throwing away yarn. We're gonna save the yarn. Okay, save the yarn. So I think about first like shapes and textures, and then I look at stitches that'll help me create those shapes and textures and combination of stitches. And then as far as like gauge goes, like I will use different size hooks and figure out if I like the fabric that is giving me or not. So swatch and block your swatch. Don't be mad at me. Just do it, okay? Just trust me. Just do it. My favorite yarn weight or material. Um, that's actually changed over the years. Like I used to love DK weight, right? So I started with chunky. That was like 5 seconds, and then I went to DK weight. I kind of skipped over worsted. I don't know why. Yeah, I have no idea why. I went to DK and I was like, oh, DK is the best. I love DK. It is great. And then I got older. And then the personal saunas started. And then in came figuring weight and sport weight. And I was like, yes, baby, I am not hot, right? I can still get the look that I want without overheating. And then as far as like fiber content, I don't discriminate. I don't have a preference. As long as it gives me the drape that I want, I'm gonna use it. And as long as it's the right color, I'm not bougie. I will use big box acrylic all the way up to hand dyed, except for spin cycle. That's a little too. It's beautiful, gorgeous. It ain't in my budget. One day it will be, right? When I get big, when y'all start buying all my patterns up, yeah, then I can get me some spin cycle. Okay, let's talk about blankets because somebody asked me how I feel about blankets. I don't make blankets. They are good for the people that they're good for, who love that thing. It's great. Same thing with granny squares. If you love it, that's great. I can't do it. For me, making a blanket is like watching paint dry. I'm not doing that. I can't do it. And I know that probably sounds crazy because it's like, oh, it's a long-term project, but you make garments. I do. I make garments because I can wear them. I can go out into the world with them. A blanket is going to stay in my house. And it's boring. I don't care what type of stitches, texture, whatever you put into it. It's like the same thing over and over again for a really long time. And I just can't, I can't get down with that. I can't. Now, I know garments are bigger projects, but I don't care. I don't care. I'm not making blankets. I'm not making baby blankets. I don't care if they smaller. Go buy yourself a blanket, or I will go buy you a blanket from the store for your baby. I'm not making baby stuff. I'm not making blankets. I don't like it. Okay. Uh, let's see. So that means that goes for temperature blankets as well. Temperature anything. Um, I live in Michigan, and our weather sucks. I don't need to document that. I don't need a representation of the crap that is our winter. I mean, if people want to do that, that's great. A lot of them turn out really, really colorful and beautiful. Again, it's a blanket. So I'm not doing it. Let's talk about these granny squares, right? So I know this is a hot topic. People who start crocheting start with granny squares because everybody says that is the simplest thing to start with. It's also boring. And I know you can have like granny squares that got like all this texture and color and blah blah blah. That just makes it a heavier square, which also feeds into I get hot. And then it's like heavy, hot, and holy. You get a breeze and you freezing. and then the rest of the time you boiling. And I'm good. It's boring. It's just like round and round. There's so many other things that you could do with crochet and yarn besides the square. And then you got to seam them together like afterwards. Or I know you got that join as you go method and all of that, but it's still putting little pieces together. I'm not doing that. I'm not. So how do I keep motivation on big projects like garments or my schlanket shawls? I don't try to keep the motivation. I know that sounds weird, but I got lots of yarn. I got lots of hooks. I don't need to keep motivation on a project. I could just start some more. Like hashtag multiple whip crew, right? If something that you're working on is not bringing you joy at that moment, put it down. Start something else. Who gonna check you? Who gonna check me? I will start 15,000 projects if I want to. I don't need to keep motivation for something. It'll get finished eventually, and if it don't, it don't. This is your making. This is my making. We can do whatever we want to. Next question. How did I find Tunisian crochet? I saw a lady doing the smock stitch on Facebook. And I'm like, what's that? So I did some digging, did some searching, found out what that was, then found the simple stitch. I was like, I can do this. And then it was like, I love this. Like the return pass is like the most soothing part of Tunisian crochet ever. It's just like, so then from there I found a couple more stitches, and then like everybody else, here comes Tony doing all the stitches, teaching all the things. Honey, it was over. Right over. Then it was like, okay, what can I do with this? Ooh, I can do this. I could do that. And I started making all the things. I'm going to continue to make all the things. If y'all don't know Tony, it's Tony Lipsy from TL Yarn Crafts, right? She's on YouTube. If you are just looking to begin in Tunisian crochet, go look, go check her out, do that. Thank me later. You need that, right? Okay. But then I started venturing outside of like the basics, right? So going beyond the basics and looking at different stitch patterns and shapes and how I can use these stitches to make more things. Hence the garments. Like, this is Tunisian crochet. I know you probably thought it wasn't, but it is. It's Tunisian crochet. And goodness, loved. It's loved. It's loved. I need to glean this, but it's loved. This is not out either. I'm sorry. It will be eventually. I promise that. I think I covered all of the questions that I got, which is surprising. Although I don't tend to like talk long. I kind of like get to the point of things and just answer the questions. But if there was something that I did not answer that you want to know the answer to, go ahead and drop it in the comments and ask me the question, and then I'll probably answer it on a future podcast episode. I need to remember that word, episode. So yeah, this is fun. So speaking of podcasting, I'm not entirely sure how this is going to go. I'll figure out frequency and extra content and all of that later. It'll probably be like the basic stuff, like whips, FOs, acquisitions. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm not buying yarn, but I'm not necessarily not buying yarn. So probably in the beginnings, I'm probably just going to show you stuff that I love from my stash until I start using it up some more. But if I get something new, I'll let you know. Like, I'll show you. So let's get into a little bit of that. I'm going to show you a whip, two. I'm going to show you 2 whips and 2 FOs because those are my latest things. And only one of them is regular crochet. So let me show you this tank top. So this, I still haven't woven in the ends, Judge Mama. This is going to be called the Breezy Boo. It's the Breezy Boo tank. There's a story behind it. I'll tell you about it when I actually release it. But this is made out of Lion Brand Coboo. Yeah, Lion Brand Coboo in the color olive. And I love it. This yarn is splitty. It's gonna split. But the drape is worth it. Just deal with it. You need to try this yarn. And I figured out how to crochet box pleats. Aren't they lovely? I love it. I love it. Love it. Okay, so I made this. I think it was last year. In a yarn that Lion Brand discontinued. So I wear it. I still wore it. But there wasn't going to be a design made out of yarn that didn't exist anymore, right? So I needed to find a new yarn. And I didn't think about it again until this year. Because I designed something else with that I can't tell you about. That's coming out in May. And I had this leftover yarn. And I was like, oh, I can redo that tank top with the leftover yarn. The first time I made it, the reason why it came out cropped is because I ran out of yarn. I was just playing. I was making something. I was figuring out these box pleats. And I ran out of yarn. And it turned out to be hella cute. So that's what it was. It's cropped. It's breezy. It's cute. So now there will be a pattern because this yarn ain't going nowhere. Okay, I hope not. I need to hurry up and release that before they decide to get rid of Coboo, because that happens. So that's actually going to come out. The testing call for that is going to be probably in the next couple of weeks. So if you are not on my testing email, you might want to do that. I'll link it. Then, so that's one FO. Let me show you the other FO. I have not actually taken FO pictures of this because I haven't woven in the ends. I did block it, but I didn't weave in the ends. And it doesn't have a name yet, but this okay, let me slow down. Let me slow down and let me let you see those speckles. You see them speckles? Yeah. And then this cable. So this is a triangle shawl. Basic. Asymmetrical triangle shawl. I'm going to stop saying basic because there ain't nothing about this basic. This is Tunisian crochet. All of it. Even the cables. It is lovely. It is drapey. It is Lola Bean yarn co-yarn. And totally just had a brain fart on the base. But I will put that. Yeah. But it's lovely. I am finishing up writing the pattern for this. And a testing call will be out for that eventually. Look at that bounce. Look at that bounce. Ooh. Absolutely love this. Okay, absolutely love it. It is squishy, drapey. It is sport weight yarn. I'm gonna need y'all to get into that sport weight because I got some stuff coming in sport. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay. You know, I'm not showing y'all that. We're gonna get into one whip. So this. So we talked about how I like shapes, right? So I will take these stitches and figure out how to get the shape that I want, and I play around until I get the shape that I want. So this is a weird shape. You're gonna love how it turns out, and you just got to wait. But look at the texture. So this is Tunisian crochet slip stick, good grief, slip stitch mosaic. So I am using one color per row. That's it. You can see the edge. One color per row. It's lovely. It's fingering weight. It is made by Haley Bailey. I don't know the colors. Well, I know the green. The green is Eucalyptus. I might be lying. I think it's Eucalyptus and Bramble. So, I don't know what that was. Eucalyptus. I'm pretty sure that's Bramble. Those two together. Nice. So this is living in my bag. So I made it. So I have an Etsy shop where I sell project bags. Should probably go check it out. Have some really nice things in it. This is the whip that I didn't show. I'll show it some other time. But this is also one of my bags. A little bigger. Okay, you can get a peek because I need to show y'all the inside. Got pockets. Two big ones. Handle. And a drawstring. So in my shop, I also, in addition to selling patterns and batik bags, I also sell what I call blank bags. So a blank bag is this. It is made from a sock blank. So I love sock blanks, right? I've never actually used them to crochet or knit from, but I've purchased them because they are beautiful. They are art. They are hand-dyed awesomeness. So this is one. Can you see the tonality in that? Right here. Anyway. So this is made just like my fabric batik bags, drawstring, pockets. This is the bucket style, so it's a little bit bigger. But look at that. Absolutely gorgeous. And I picked an orange one to show you because orange is my favorite color. But I have speckles. I have one that looks like camo. So what I do is I scour the places and find blanks that are absolutely beautiful. Then I cut them up. I make them into bags where you can preserve the art of the sock blank. Because once you take it apart, once you work with it, it's still beautiful. It just looks different, right? It's just different. The colors end up in different places. It becomes a totally different fabric. It's still beautiful, but I like that original look. So I wanted to preserve the art, and so that's where blank bags came in. So go ahead and check out my Etsy shop. It is linked below. So here is an example of like a speckled one. I know this bad boy is bright, but look at that. And the bags are super durable. You know, the bottoms are water resistant, because I can't say waterproof, but they're water resistant. You ever set your bag down at a coffee shop, you just got all wet. Yeah, you got to worry about that with this one. I love this one. It's bright. I can't steal it. I can't. I want to. But no, it's for sale. So go ahead to the shop and grab these up. Okay. That's all I got. And now I'm going to do the whole podcasty thing, right? If you love this content, like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Next episode, I will have more shares of like people and designs. So that's the purpose of this podcast. I am sharing BBIMP designers, makers, all the things. We are going to find each other. We are going to support each other. It's going to be awesome. And then I'll talk a little bit about myself. All right. Thanks. See ya.